Everybody, what's up? Happy Wednesday. Hope you're watching the Olympics. It's funny, as an American living in Canada, I get to watch the Canadian versions of the TV of the Olympics, and so it's less stories, less heartwarming, yada yada, whatever. But it's more like just they show the event, which is, for a sports fan, it's a good deal. So I hope wherever you are, you guys are watching the Olympics. Jonathan Redford, and yes, I see you. You are on time, sir. And to answer your question that you sent me, um, no. Nope, no. Lacrosse could care less. I love it. Man, you guys are just harsh. Love, just harsh. Alex Vigora, good to see you, buddy. Welcome. And to the lurkers out there, that's awesome. Willie Lau, good morning, buddy. Willie, are you in Hong Kong? Like, just to clarify, I like, because one time I think you said you were back in Australia, or maybe I totally missed that up. But great post, by the way, about and I'm going to talk about that briefly. Um, uh, but Willie posted a clip, and I thought I would start with this tonight, um, just so that, a couple weeks ago, right on. Willie's in Hong Kong. That's cool. Willie, I almost did an interview for the South China Post. They contacted me for a comment on the doping scandal over there, with Camila Vieva. Australia is your second home. That's cool. Yeah. We are international here at Lacrosse Goalie University. Um, so I almost did an interview for South China Post, but they bailed on me. So I guess they got it sorted. It seems to be South China Morning Post. Yeah, cool paper. Like a lot of good stuff in there. But Willie made a great post because he posted a comment about that UVM Duke game highlights. And I had seen that, Willie, and I was kind of like, I've got having been a hockey goalie and things like that. Like, I totally kind of got what was going on there, but it was completely not the way to implement it, and not the way to, if that's in fact what he was doing, because I'm not really sure what the hell he was doing looking at that clip. So, but maybe I'll pick apart that. I'll pick apart that. Maybe next week, or we'll see. So, I try to temper myself occasionally when I see stupid stuff, but it's, because, again, I don't know. Like, for us, the college players are really our pros. Like, they're the ones that are supposedly that they're the pinnacle of our sport, like, sort of, like we. So I don't know. People pick apart, like, college football, and I figure we should start picking apart college lacrosse. So I'll get to that. But thanks for posting that. So I hope that made sense to people, because what the Duke goalie was doing, in my opinion, was not something I would teach like that. I wouldn't necessarily do it, because you're nowhere near that. Um, to quote, hold on, Willie, it's great to hear that, because I felt really unqualified to comment because I'm nowhere close to that skill level. Yeah, one thing I tell all my lacrosse dads, right? Like, we have a good community of lacrosse dads, and dads and jeans, and the default that youth sports is perpetuating is that if you are a dad or a mom, you don't know anything, and you should just defer to those college kids that are coaching your kid, or that guy who coached or did whatever. And I disagree with that. I think we are at a stage where, youth sports is a billion-dollar business, like multi-billion-dollar business. And I think when you're at that sort of, deal flow, it's good to ask questions. And when you see a player playing a certain way, it's important to just kind of ask, like, what, that doesn't make sense to me as a human being, as an adult. That doesn't make sense to me, and here's why. And that's how innovation happens, right? Like, that's how innovation happens. That's how we start to improve. But it's also how we kind of go, like, wait a second, what are you saying? And that's what I encourage here. Like, I encourage people, like, to write me, or email me, or send me an Instagram message, like, go, like, hey, I saw this, and that's what this group's about. It's not just, like, a rehashing of information. That's why, like, I don't really have people on here. It's because I don't like I don't I like, if that Duke kid was on my, like, if I did a podcast with that Duke goalie, and a lot of people be like, "Oh yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, he plays at Duke. He must be really good." No, no. I think what we're seeing in field lacrosse is, we're seeing, and this just surprises everybody, that we can have a level of really poor play still happening. And then people wonder, like, well, why? Like Dan Baker asked, like, well, how the hell is this happening? And I'm like, these people just don't, they're not thinking critically, in my opinion. And like I said, when people bring it up with me, I don't get equal, I don't get thought out answers. So I'm hoping, when you guys tune in to hear me, whether you're watching me live or you're hearing the podcast or watching like YouTube or whatever, that you're getting a um, well thought out comments, right? And ideas that come from not just lacrosse. We're not just rehashing it. So that's good. So, yeah. So really, thanks for that, Willie. And what I'll do is I'll make some notes to pick up, because there's a lot of stuff like the UVM goalie stance. Like I was like, hey, let's talk about the run, because everybody's going to want to talk about the run. But the UVM goalie stance, like, you're killing me. Like, you're killing me. And you start to wonder, like, why people get recruited, and you think, well, like, who else wants to live in Burlington, Vermont when it's cold? I've been to Burlington. It's pretty. They got a really good Barnes and Noble, and they've got like good Ben and Jerry's ice cream. But outside of that, it's like a hippie town, dude. Bernie Sanders, woolly mitts. Anyway, all right. Let's move on. Greetings to all our new Lacrosse Goalie University members. The season is coming, so if now is the time. If I can help you help your goalie, I'd love to get you in Lacrosse Goalie University and help you out. And I'm still looking at dates potentially for this summer, July, August, September, maybe like I'm looking at some camps or tournaments that are already in play, or tournaments that are already in play, and looking to maybe kind of do something like the Thursday, Friday before like a big event, like an NXT event or something like that. Um, uh, and we'll see. We'll see. So we'll see. I got to make the numbers work. Sorry, got to log off. Kids are on Zoom. Wife work from home and killing the Wi-Fi. Stay safe and happy, everyone. All right, Willie, take care. Cheers to Hong Kong lacrosse. Love that. All right. Jonathan Redmond, I see you. Yeah, I just got to get the numbers to work. All right, then we'll figure that out. Okay. All right. So shall we get started with the first one of tonight? So people got to log into the live on Wednesdays to get my rant, my pre-rant, and then we'll get into like tidbits here. So 12, and we're going 20. All right. So the first one, the first topic for this week of February is this clip right here. So this was just posted on WLax. I don't know who this is. I don't know. I don't have any relationship to these players, but and for the goalie in question here, like, first and foremost, if you're seeing this, if someone has forwarded this to you, I want to just say big hugs and all sorts of love, because I really don't like always doing these types of videos, because I know there's lots of stuff going on. But I just thought I would use this as a little bit of a clip, and maybe if you're watching it, this helps you in the future. Um, Women's lacrosse, the goalies that I coach, it's kind of 50-50. Like, I have about 50% girls and 50% boys. And I'll tell you, hands down, like, the shots the girls face are really difficult. And the idea is that they are sometimes I feel like women's lacrosse is unfair. Like, I feel like the men's game has gotten a little unfair, and we'll do that clip later about the one-handed saving one-handed shots and things like that. But the girls' game is really difficult for goalies, and also it's at this age group that I'm kind of guesstimating here, is that we get to a point where the physicality of a goalie is really not commensurate to the physicality of the leverage of a lacrosse stick for the girls, right? So what I mean by that is, like, you can have like a 12, 13, 14-year-old girl who can, when they get the handle, and this happens with the boys too, but that when they get the handle on the stick, when they understand like what they can do with the ball and cradling, and kind of all of a sudden they get wrists. Well, the velocity of the ball comes out really quickly. And so what we end up happening is we couple that with the culture of field lacrosse of, like, basically, players being unprotected, and this goalie is basically, unprotected. And there's a lot of stuff that goes around that, and not a lot of thinking happens around that, that's for sure. But when I see a goalie like this in the cage, I go like, all right, she's, it just makes me cringe a little bit, right? So she's got shin guards on, but they're like little band-aids, on her shins. And this goalie, as fearless as she may be, as courageous as she may be, in my opinion, this doesn't make sense to me. Okay, this doesn't make sense to me at all. So what happens here? A couple of bad tendencies that are happening in sports is this idea of like, okay, or in lacrosse, is that we have our stick hanging outside the cage, and this has gotten worse because of the drill. You may have seen this like pretty much any camp or clinic copying another camp or clinic has that like goalie outlet like stand by the side of the cage, off pipe right or pipe left, just behind, and then the goalie kind of starts off that pipe and waits for the pass. Problem is that what's happening there when the goalie is on that post is they're basically trying to like face that feeder, and that makes no sense. It's creating all sorts of really bad habits. And then you couple that with the fact so you got a righty goalie on a right side pipe. Okay. Um, I have argued for years and I will continue to argue for it. I think that the lacrosse goalie of the future will be able to play basically with both hands, similar to a handball goalie, similar to a soccer goalie. They will become adept at having that stick in both hands so that they can modify, because here, just fundamentally, the way a right-handed goalie is standing on the right-handed post is that stick is going to want to hang outside the post, right? And so that's what's basically happening here. But once the player comes above goal line, once the shooter comes above goal line, let me just change my FPS here. All right. Right here, the goalie, where the feet are placed on the ground, I don't particularly mind. But what I don't like here is this goalie, to me, doesn't look really intimidating in front of the shooter here. So um, the plus now we've got all this stick head hanging outside of the post. So even if I know that you're going to shoot to my far side, I am basically, as a goalie, I'm putting myself at a disadvantage, because every inch my stick is to my right is an extra inch I have to move it to my left if the ball goes there, right? And so that's kind of what we're setting up for here. So what I would like to see happen here is that this goalie, there's a couple things that happen here. Is if you watch the cradling action in women's lacrosse, it's a big motion, right? It's a big motion. It's like all like the arms are moving, the shoulders are moving. It's a big move because of the shallow pocket, centrifugal force, and all that stuff, right? That's what's happening here. So this first fake is not really a shot, but you almost kind of have to respect it as such. This all happens in an instant. But as a goalie, what we start to learn is that players like shooters will learn that they'll fake once and then shoot, or they'll fake twice and three times and shoot. So what happens here is that the goalie, by leaving their stick outside, and then now this drop is completely unnecessary. If you think about it, and this is what I want people to think about here, is that if my stick head is outside of the post, if I move it anywhere, I want to move it in a way that's it's going to help me for the next move. So for example, like if this player comes in and fakes me high, and I'm going to basically stay basically stay home and wait for that first fake. So I'm not going to bite for that first fake. So there's the fake, right? So her stick is in place. Now her body drops, but her hands haven't, right? That stick head is still there. So now this goalie is kind of guessing, because when the goalie drops their stick, it's like, well, wait a second. What was she trying to do? Is she trying to maybe get the stick ready to move to the off stick side, like because she's got to follow that fake? Well, this is where I believe 100% that a goalie is better off, even a goalie who's not very good at this, a goalie is better off having their stick in their left hand here, even if they're not very good with it, because it's easier to follow the stick head, right? A righty shooter, a righty goalie, it's better here if from this distance to the cage. it's better if this goalie has their stick in their left hand. Okay. So I think that a goalie who, and here's what happens, guys, is goalies try this. They try it once on their own. It doesn't go very well. And they go, I'm never doing that again. And then we're stuck in this circle. So because what happens here is that when a player comes around this way, if they do fake and that goalie tries to get right here, the goalie is crossed up. So let's say I'll give the goalie the benefit of the doubt. She was going to try to go to that far side, worried that, she might put the ball there now, like fake high, shoot low, but she didn't shoot low. And the goalie reversed herself, got it. But now here, the goalie is still on the goal line. So this is the smallest the goalie can be, if you think about it, without standing actually inside the goal. The goalie, if they're standing kind of where she is, this is about as small as she could actually be in the cage. All right. And by wasting the stick head outside of the post, again, boys do this too. This doesn't make much sense to me. So now here, this goalie, in my opinion, the goalie needs to be out at the shooter. So right here, she's reaching forward, and that's a big no-no. So when your goalie, like, so the general rule that people like to kind of throw out every once in a while is they say, like, oh, you should match sticks. Well, okay, that's okay if you don't sacrifice position. And so I'll give you an example. Like in ice hockey, in ice hockey, the player that reaches first is usually the one that gets their ass kicked. All right. So if you see hockey guys, if you've ever seen a hockey fight and you see guys like, they're skating in circles and they're sizing each other up, they're waiting to do that. And because the guy that reaches first is usually the guy that loses. Same thing happens in football where, if I'm an offensive lineman and I stand up, if I reach for you lunging at me, that's when a defensive, like a pass rusher, will basically chop the hands out of the way and run right around that offensive guy and sack the quarterback. Okay, it's really important to understand that. So the goalie here, from what I can tell from the video, is reaching. This defensive player is doing jack, you know what, and now this offensive player is just going to shoot through everybody and just put it right in the corner. Like, it's the easiest thing ever. Now, the other thing here is that the goalie is frozen to this post. So what you have to understand is you have to understand the lines. Like if I take a line and I run it from the inside of this post out to her stick, right here, goalie's probably an okay position. We know that basically the shooter's got to go far side. And as she comes a step further upfield, the goalie has to move to her left. Like this, basically that foot's got to come over. She's got to move across, because that's where, if you're going to play this with your stick in your right hand, you've got to then move the body to shorten up that distance, right? So this is just like, if you watch the goalie's stick, just watch the goalie's stick as I play this through. It's like up, down, up, wah, wah, wah. Wait a second. No. The only place the ball can go here is above the goalie's head or far side. And as these angles change, it becomes more apparent that the shooter can only go above her head or far side, right? So the idea is, a goalie, is we've got to know that. We've got to hedge those bets, right? And so what I would love to see this goalie do, because she's frozen here. She's up on her toes. She has no ability to move laterally at this point. But the idea is you want to keep your balance. You want to basically stay patient. You want to bring that stick head inside the post, right? So basically it's almost like above your head a little bit inside the post, and you're waiting. You're like, okay, all she's got is far side, and I'm going to wait for that first fake, right? I got to respect it, because she might not fake at all. She might just shoot it. So I got to respect that. But that's where you're just like, you're moving, and then you're moving across, and you're trying to make that save. But the worst thing is, if we're leaving our stick head outside the post, we're just wasting like that square footage to make the save. And that's something where I see goalies like this and I go, this goalie, in my opinion, has been poorly coached. And sorry to offend whoever's been coaching her, but like, you've not helped this goalie to understand basically the language of lacrosse and what can happen here because she's just frozen. And your goalie cannot just try to react to everything. And that's how most people coach this position is they just go like, oh, you've got to react. You just got to react. No, you have to understand. And the best athletes, like in neuroscience, like we understand that the brain is basically this library of pre-experienced conditions, right? And some of those memories are they're they're big and they're defined and they're easy to access. Others are like they're faint and they're harder to access, but the idea is like the best athletes are the ones who have the most of that built up in their data, like in kind of in their database in their library. And this goalie, I can guarantee you, this goalie has seen this type of play more like more than once. This isn't the first time this has happened to a goalie at this level, but you can just tell by the plan of attack of the goalie that there is no plan of attack. It's just, oh, I got to react. That is a recipe for disaster. And that's what's stifling, in my opinion, the development of lacrosse goalies. All right, is because there's no real intent, no intention with which to understand, like, okay, what happens in this situation, and what do I need to do, and where's my stickhead need to be, that sort of thing. Where's the odds of this? Where's this ball going to go? Right, that's really really important. Okay, Mike Porash writes, in the same situation, I have the stickhead on the Canadian left till I have to step. So you cross over, you cross your hands across your body. Is that what you're talking about? Um, um, which to because I'm tall enough to fill the cage, I'll get hit in the head. Yeah. Um, how would you build that database? Just more reps. Okay, great questions here. Who's that? Who's that? Sherry Hawkins. So Sherry, one of the things that I've been experiencing this year a lot is with my older goalies. Okay, where's your question? There's your question. Like my college age goalies, especially on the girls' side, is what I'm seeing is that the 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 tendency of camps and clinics and things that you see on like on Instagram because the guys that run really great Instagram accounts and they show like they're like, yeah, it's rapid fire, it's cool. And seriously, if I do a clinic, I will have I will have a crew there. I will be like, I'll do it up, and I hate that stuff, but I'll do it up because it's really like a business decision. But one of the things that I can't stand is you see these goalies going through rep after rep after rep after rep. And what do? It's like they get in the cage, they get shot on, and then they get out of the cage, and the next one's in. And you see that goalie that was just in, and they're like, picking up the ball, and they're getting to the next thing. There's no deliberate thinking, right? And you've probably heard the term deliberate practice, right? But the idea and what that really means, it's like, okay, and I think I wrote about this Monday in my newsletter, was this idea of having like intention. It's like, what are you trying to do? And in field lacrosse, especially in field lacrosse, the goalies are just run through these crazy reps and there's no time to think. And what ends up happening is you have like a division 1 lacrosse goalie who still doesn't know what the hell is going on. They have done thousands of repetitions, but there's been no intention about it. And this just kind of came to me. It's like if you have like a hot pot in the stove, right? Like let's say you got a pot of boiling water on the stove, and every day you pass your hand over it real quick, right? You just right over the top, right through the steam. It's like right real quick, right through the top. What happens? Nothing happens. There's no impact there, right? And then maybe down the road, you got the pot of boiling water, and you hit the side of the pot, and that's a little hotter because it's like the metal's hot, and you kind of get this little memory, like, oh, okay, the pot's hot. But then what ends up happening on like game day, it's like you're passing your hand in the steam. And what happens with the steam? Like you burn the heck out of your hand, but because you've never done it enough and with enough, like, what does this really feel like? Oh, then you never learn. you never learn that steam can burn you like worse than what a hot pot would do. And I know that's not that's not the best example, but the idea here is this idea of like intention and critical thinking and video review and analysis that pretty much, my Olympic experience taught me that. Right. And when I've got lacrosse parents who cringe going like, oh, I don't want to set up my phone on a tripod and video my kid. I don't want to be that parent. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Because because this happens, right? Or it happens at the Division 1 level, and you're like, why the hell is my goalie, who's like Division 1, still suck at these things? And it just drives me crazy because like the Division 1 game of like, and what I mean by game, not the game of lacrosse, like the game of like recruiting and playing and the stuff and the helmets and the gloves and all the crap, like if there's no intention to it, then you're not as good as you could like be. And then it's like, what the hell are we doing this for? Like then sport becomes this like massive distraction from like math class. And you're wondering like, well, what the hell could we do? So what I would do with this goalie is I would run in practice. I would look at this video, for example. So I would look at this video and then I would come to practice Monday, Tuesday, whatever, and I would say, all right, remember that goal in the second quarter where that girl came around from the right side, the number 11 with the yellow stick head? Yeah. And she kind of faked you up and okay, we're gonna work on that. All right. So where should your stick be? Well, it shouldn't be dangling outside the post, right? Like, that's like rule number one. Unless it would like in hockey, I've said this before. In ice hockey, a goalie can basically be in their most athletic stance, like their most explosive base stance, and they may have an elbow that's dangling outside of a post, but it's not sacrificing their ability to make a save. This is, right? So this is not helping this goalie. And so the fact that this goalie is playing at this level, like this is an ECD game, like this is an ECD video. I don't have my Instagram up, but this is like this is a decent game. This goalie is not new, but then who the hell's coaching her? Like it's crazy. So I would go to practice on Monday or whatever, and I would say, okay, we're gonna run like 50 of these. So I'm gonna take my offensive girls, and I'm saying, okay, girls, remember that girl who scored on us in the second quarter, the number 11 with the yellow stick head? Okay, we're all gonna do that play. All right. Well, it's gonna help our shooters, so it's definitely gonna help our goalie. So here's the deal: you're gonna come in, you're gonna all come right-handed, and the girls who are lefties are gonna go like, ah, really? And you're like, yes, really. Okay. And so you're gonna come in right-handed, and you're gonna fake high, and then you're gonna look like you're gonna fake low, and then you're gonna have time for like basically two fakes and a shot to that far post. And now I'm gonna get my goalie in the cage, and I'm gonna go, what'd you learn? Like, what'd you see in the first one? Okay, yeah, she can't put it through your head, right? So we're covered there, right? And if I run strings and I show her all the angles that are going to happen on this play, she's going to go, wow, actually, if I move my head, I would make that save. Well, maybe, yeah, right? And I would show her my goalie this video. I'd be like, you remember when you launched off onto your toes and then you couldn't move anymore? Well, we don't want to do that again. Okay, we don't want to do that again. Um, so so that's what we're gonna do. So I'm not just gonna help my goalie, pardon me, but I'm gonna help the whole fucking team, you know? And then we're gonna go out the next week, and our girls are gonna score because they're gonna be like, okay, yeah, remember that girl number 11 that scored on us in the second quarter, and then we did that drill in practice, and we all got to do it. And then, oh my god, I've got the ball, and I'm gonna do the same thing to their goalie, you know? And like girls are great because girls are like psychological, like they're like little grogu's like that just want to take everybody down. They all look good, they all look cute, and they all look like they're friendly and sweet, and they got their pennies and their tans, but really they just want to you just want to eat you alive. And they're going to come out there after doing practice, and they're going to go like, yeah, they're going to see their goalie. And they're like, I'm going to fake you high, and you're going to bite just like our goalie used to do, but she doesn't do it anymore because we practiced this on Monday. And I'm going to score around you far side, and we're all going to go, yay. And we're all going to go to our coach and go, coach, you're amazing. Thank you. That was so good. And the goalie, your goalie, who got scored on last week, but who's on the other end of the field now watching you score, is going to go, holy shit, that was amazing. That's how this is supposed to work. That's how this is supposed to work. And so, yes, just it makes sense. I hate just watching those quick reps in and out of the goalies. And this is the problem with, like, if I end up doing a clinic this summer, I will tell you that one of the things that I will warn everybody when they come is that you're going to pay just as much money as you would pay for any of those other things. And we're going to do it in a way where your goalie is going to leave here with like mental improvement, not just like feeling hot and sweaty and they've got bruises. Like that's just not helping anybody. Right. I need to share you with my daughter's coaches. So Sherry, I'll tell you, I don't do well with coaches. There's the coaches that like, I'll say this, the coaches that come on here and who are part of it and they understand me and they go back to their goalies, they're the good ones. But coaches, I warn you, because there's coaches out there who are like, they don't want to hear this because they get so defensive and so protective, and it sucks. In my other business, like my at athletespecific.com, like, where I live in Calgary's an Olympic city. Like there's tons of sports here. There's tons of stuff. And I speak on mental performance and stuff like that. And I reach out to coaches all the time, and I'm like, I'd love to come talk to your group. And they're like, if you watch Ted Lasso, when in the scene where the sports psych comes in and he gets all like, he's like, what are you going to do with my team? That's what happens in sports. Right? That's what happens in sports. So I'm better off working with your goalie one-on-one, because then what they end up doing is they end up going to practice, doing their thing, and the coach goes like, wow, what the hell's going on with Jimmy over there? Right? Or Christina, like she's doing like, whoa, what? I've never seen her do that before. Hey, what are you doing over there? Where'd you learn that? Right? So that's kind of how this ends up happening. But this bothers me so much. So much. And so for this goalie, if you're watching me right now, if you're listening, I want to give you a big freaking bear hug and going like, you're better than how you're playing right now, because nobody's helped you think critically of your game. And that's what's going to help you. And it doesn't take a lot. Because what I find with all the girls I've ever worked with, they all want to be really, really good. Because what happens is when they lose, everybody shits on them. Or even if they don't, the goalie feels like everybody's shitting on him. Like in their cars on their ride home, your goalie's thinking like everybody hates me. And even the most loving of teams, I've seen it. Again, it's that Grogu psychological warfare crap that girls are really good at. And goalies take it the hardest. Right? The goalies take it the absolute hardest. And I hate to see it. So, yeah. All right. So rant over. Does that help? Please? So show this to your goalie. I guarantee you, like one of the things that happens with all the goalies I work with is that I tell every single one of them, you are better than how you're performing right now. Right. And it's not your fault. Right. It's not your fault. You just need someone to help you think critically. Okay. So Sherry, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. That was a good question too, or good comments. Yeah. And be an informed consumer. Don't just pay for reps. That's silly, right? Don't pay for bruises either. That's not cool either. All right. Moving on. 22. Okay. Next clip. Where am I here? Oh, Mike Prash. You got to finish up this thought here. The reason for the Canadian left is not only for coverage, but because if the feed goes to someone beyond 45 degrees GLE, you're going to lead with your stick for your best chance against a quick shot like a quick stick. Yeah, that's true. So, Mike, I'm going to encourage you to. There's actually in that UVM Duke highlight film that Willie posted in the group today. If you watch that clip, and I can't remember, it's got to be in the first 5 or 7 minutes because I didn't go through the highlights. I watched most of the game, but I can't remember where it was exactly. I think it's about 5 minutes. There's a feed, like Duke makes a feed from like side right, basically goal line extended, and there's an attackman that comes from side left, completely uncontested, and the UVM goalie, who's a righty, um, basically in that situation, if the UVM goalie was left-handed there, even if he didn't go for it, he would look intimidating for that pass. And so if you think about this, right? If you're a righty goalie on the right post and there's someone open in front, now this would vary depending on how far away they are from the cage, right? But you know what I mean here is that if my stick is in my right hand, the guy with the ball um, feels like he's got a lot of leeway to make that pass. But if your stick is in your left hand, visually, like optically, you look like you have more ability to cut off a pass. So this is where and for a guy like you know, like where you've been playing for a while, like when you switch hands, it feels weird and you don't want to do it. And but I guarantee you, just mess around with it and warm up. Get shot on, have guys like line up in a half moon and shoot on you and just play with a stick in your other hand. And your world will change. Um oh no. Brad, you love it and that's your club. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Brad. I warn you. I warn people if you come here, like all the hate I send with love. But man, we can make this girl can be so much better here, dude. So watch that clip. Not sure I'll send the link to coach. Is that your goalie? And by the way, this clip that what we're like this is not going to make the replay. So this is totally in between two questions. So um yeah, you also use discourage passes to the crease. Um Brad Brad, do me a favor, send me a message and tell me about your club and what age group that is and all that stuff. And yeah, yeah. Like I would get some sweatpants on this girl. I would get some thigh pads on her. I would get some like football pants on her to cover her knees and her thighs. I take the band-aids off her shin and put on something a little bit more significant. Um and and yeah, and I'd love to I would yeah, well, I can go a long way on that, but whatever. Um, you know, that's this goalie is better than this play. And I'm sure she's fantastic, but this play drives me nuts. Okay. Drives me nuts. Like this is a goalie that yeah. Anyway. All right. Good stuff. So Brad, send me a message, would you? That's fine. That always makes me nervous. All right. So next question. 4210. Okay, so this next one is kind of fun. So, have you practiced saving one-handed shots? So, this one, full disclosure for this next one, guys, is that I don't have a full-on plan for how to save one-handed shots. That's not the point of this. Okay, that's not the point of this. There's some more clips here. Here it is. It's coming up right here. Okay, so I love this one too because I get to pick defense again, which is becoming a thing for me. Um, so I'll just play this through once. So you guys watch it. Feed comes across the top. This guy midi overcommits. Goalie's in pretty good position. All right, this guy runs through three people, takes a one-handed shot and scores, and that's just wrong. Okay, I hate that. Okay, well there comes my handball clip. All right, so first and foremost, let's. So I like this goalie's position. I think that top hand. I think that the head of the stick is a little high. I think we can bring those hands down and get that left elbow out a little bit, and just get to more of an athletic stance. The feet are wide. They're probably a slightly too wide for this goalie, but the angle between the ankle, knee, and hip is good in my opinion. They're not stacked on top of one another. So this goalie can move. Okay, but so let's just talk for a second about defense. Um, Actually, let's talk for a second before I get into that. Let's talk first about this. Is that I encourage your teams, your coaches, your goalies to basically dedicate a small percentage of practice whatever, 5%, 100 balls, I don't care. Like what you figured out, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to creative shots, to creative shooting, not just for your goalies, but for your team. Okay. Because um, the, um, the thing that really bothers me is that um, the creativity of lacrosse has gone up a lot. The creativity of shooters, but the creativity of goalies to understand what that can do has gone away. All right, and so you have to dedicate some time to that, or else your goalie is just going to be further and further behind. And again, this is part of the language of lacrosse. It's unique. A one-handed shot coming through the middle of the crease. It's like a swear at a bar. Right, you're not going to be in there all that often, but then when you're there, if that happens, you got to learn how to deal with it, right? So, so for this, some of you are in more bars than others, but let's just put it that way. All right. So yes, Mike Porashridge. First, the guy should have been leveled. Second, a one-handed shot is a one-dimensional vectored shot. Mike, I'm going to stand on my chair because that went over my head. Can you explain, please? Um, um, Yeah, I learned that in box lacrosse. If you follow the head of the stick, it can't change unless he's Superman. Gotcha. Okay, you're very like that's very true, and that's one thing that people have to understand. So, so in box lacrosse, in particular, like when you get around a lot of really good guys, and Mike, are you in Denver? Can't remember. Um, But the idea is that guys in box get really creative, partly because there's like a shot clock, and so sometimes people get hung up at the last couple seconds. They got to do something to get the shot off. But you see guys coming in, getting hung up, and they got one hand on the stick, and they try to make a shot, and then he's totally committed once the second hand is off the stick. Yes, you're from Denver. Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is where everybody should understand that when you talk about understanding the language of lacrosse, which I've been trying to get you guys to understand, is this is that it's the stick, it's the angle of the stick, it's the angle of the shaft, it's the angle of the hands, and then the arm that kind of give away the direction of that shot. And like Mike said, there's a point where you get to a point. I'm going to fast forward this here, right here. Like this guy can only do so much with his ball. Right. So like right here, if I know that his hand is way back here and he's about to get hit. Well, if I actually have done this with my own stick, I realize that I can't shoot this ball down very hard, that the ball is most likely going to go like up, right? There's only so far this ball can go down by his positioning, and also the stick head is going to give away, like right here, the angle of the release is going to tell us like where that ball goes, right? So this guy, um, your goalie needs to have experienced this at some point in practice to go, okay, wait a second. All right, he's getting lit up here. He's getting pushed. This ball is probably not going to go low. So I've got to assume it's going to go high and get there. Oops, sorry, get them and get there. The other thing is that as a righty goalie, as a player, as the shooter comes across the front of the cage, this goalie is standing on the freaking goal line. You are the smallest you can be. Any shot is the furthest away it could possibly be from you. What I mean by that is like if we're doing like angles here, um, if I let's say the ball is going to go 6 inches off the left side of my head. Well, if I stand all the way back in the cage, well, I've got to move my stick as like the longest distance to get to 6 inches. That makes sense. If I come out at the shooter with the same stance, yes, there's less distance, but this ball is moving quite slowly. There's less distance from the time the ball leaves the stick to me, but the distance I have to move has now been cut down, right? Has now been cut down. So it's a shorter distance. Does that make sense? Okay. Um, but the idea is that I want, I want a goalie to come out and be big because when this guy is getting hung up by this defenseman here, he's still looking at the cage going like, wow, there's a lot of net to shoot at, right? I got a lot of options here. And I should put this on a t-shirt, but the idea is this. If you stand back in the cage, okay, it's the smallest you can be, it's the most net they can shoot at, and the assumption is they're going to hit the cage, right? They're going to hit the cage, right? And you're going to have to make a save. Whereas if you are a big dude, right? They've got less to shoot at. So a couple things happen. One, they miss. Two, they hit you. Three, they decide not to shoot at all, right? Four, you make the save, or then five, it goes in. Otherwise, it's like they shoot, you try to make a save, it goes in. What do you want? You want five options or just two? Okay. Um, Mike writes, Mike, you guys some good comments in here, buddy. This is great. You got it, John. Meet the shot from the only place it can come from, the stick head. Yep. Only bad thing that can happen is it reflects off your defender, and you can't always account for that. Yeah, like we don't plan, we don't like lacrosse goalies, field lacrosse goalies especially. We're not planning for deflections. We're not like an ice hockey goalie, even soccer goalies. Like they'll do they'll do deflection training, really, I think, just to spice it up a little bit. Um, but the idea, in my opinion, is that field lacrosse goalies have to learn what the hell's going on with a stick head and what's going on with a stick and where's the ball going to go, right? Because at the D1 level, it happens in a freaking heartbeat. But so let's just rip on the defenders here for a second. So right here, this midi starts out okay. Okay, he comes, but right here, the job here for your defense, coaches, please tell your tell your D, your job is not to get the ball. Your job is to contain the man. So right here, this is a very Canadian move, right? This is a very Canadian move. Guy comes in, puts a stick in his left hand, and he's going to try to dodge under, all right? And then he's going to roll. But he can't do anything with his ball here. He can't pass it. He can't shoot it. So your job is to just contain him, okay? And so right here, this defender is now, how do we call it? What's the technical term? Screwed. Yeah, right here. So he's kind of got him, but he's underneath him, and he's gonna overcommit here. And now, where if he had just stayed here, he would have run him into a double team, and they probably could have stripped the ball. This is what I can't stand about the state of defense now in high school and collegiate lacrosse, is that the defender thinks it's just him. And there's no, even in that UVM game, the goalie calls for double team and the D totally butchers it and they get scored on. So right here, this long pole goes to hack at him. But now because that short stick right here is out of position, he's just going to run around them both. Run around them both. But now here, the defender kind of trips at this point. They still got him. If they're just patient and realize, like, oh, guess what? He's gonna have to bring his hands back to score. Let's just wait for that. Oh, wait, no, we'll just run right around him again. 7-7 run, like 77 has run around this kid like 3 times. Okay. All he's got to do is get inside of him. Right. And now the slide comes, which is great, but it's a shorty, so you can't really do much. And the guy looks like a freaking genius running around 3 people. So it's like, please, guys. Yeah, but damn, that defense failed. Mike writes, as I tell my son, the single point of truth is the stickhead. Don't respect the shooter's body. They have been trained to lie. If they have good shooting coaches, focus on the stickhead. But damn, that defense failed. Yes. Yeah. And I think last week is when I talked about, I think it was last week, about the goalie coaching that talks about you should read a shooter's shoulders to get a jump on the ball. No, because shooters are only going to get better than they are now. And the shooters that are out there now, who, when they realize, like, oh, wait, I can actually, like, doesn't it amaze you that more players don't do like look away passing or shooting? As a goalie, when I was in high school, when I figured out that I could look off a defense or a ride, I could look off like an entire team. Like 9 guys would go one way and I would pass to my open teammate on the other side of the field. It's like Matthew Stafford in the Super Bowl, man. Right? That last pass he made to Cooper Cup, not the touchdown pass, but the one before it. Matthew Stafford's like looking this way, and he went whoop. It's like every lacrosse player should learn how to do that. Okay, every lacrosse player should learn how to do that. So this one really bothered me. Okay, for different reasons. So, all right. So yeah, so your goalie, you should have some time. So this is again, this is a thing I would do. It's like, okay, guys, remember in that second quarter when we got Jeff from the other team like made our defense look stupid, especially you, Jimmy. Um, and he came in and he did that one. We're gonna practice that. We're gonna practice that. And what I would do is I put my defense out there with no sticks. I'd say, okay, we're going to do this in slow motion for a while. Okay. Remember, he came down here and then you guys overplayed him. I would actually have my D try to overplay him and then see him roll around. And then he comes in and I would have my team like take a one handed shot and go like, whoop, let's see what that does. And then your team is going to go like, hey, wow, guess what I can do? I'm actually pretty good at that. I might try that in a game. Now that might backfire a little bit, but at least your kids are learning. Okay. So you got to remember, dedicate some time in practice to creative shots and understand and learn what that stick is doing. All right. Let's moving on. All right, moving on. All right, this one's kind of fun. We're going to talk about what you can learn from a handball goalie. Okay. What you can learn from a handball goalie. So I could pull out 1,000 clips, but I just pulled out this one clip because this made me laugh. So here it is. All right, here it is. So you've heard me say this before, okay? That the lacrosse goalie is the only goalie in any sport that is basically taught to try to save a ball with one hand. Okay, so now let me just give you a little history here. So if you look at an ice hockey goalie, right? They have a catching glove, they have a blocker, they have a stick. Okay. They have pads. If a shot goes to their left side down low, they're going to try to get it with their leg, their foot, and then their left hand. If the puck is going to the right side, they're going to go with maybe their right hand. If it's high, they're going to go with the right hand, like if they're a blocker or whatever. If it's going upstairs on their left hand, they're going to go with they're going to move their left hand. Okay. If it goes 5-hole, they're going to drop and get their knees there, even though the stick is there. Right. The stick is there. A stick is about 4 inches wide. I can't remember exactly how wide a goalie stick is. It was 4 inches wide. Right. Soccer goalie. Okay. And also, the equipment on an ice hockey goalie is designed to protect it from a puck, a frozen piece of plastic or a piece of rubber made in Czechoslovakia that hurts. And I've never heard a hockey goalie say, God, if I just get rid of my arm pads, I would make more saves. Or if I could just thin out these leg pads, I could help out on the clear. Doesn't happen. Okay. Soccer goalie, same thing. All right. Big ball, big fluffy ball, shot from very far away, typically. All right. If it's shot from in close and it contacts you, it doesn't hurt that much. Although when you get to like the pro level, it can hurt. But the idea is like if the ball goes to my left, I'm diving to my left. I'm not trying to, what's interesting with a soccer goal is, and someone's gonna hear this but they go, but Jonathan, wait. The truth is that, sometimes to dive, it's actually better to dive and reach with like if I'm diving to my left, I dive with my right hand, right? Just has to do with launching and things like that. Field hockey goalies, okay? Field hockey goalies have morphed where their equipment has actually changed, right? So they used to wear a blocker like an ice hockey goalie, but now that blocker has actually been flipped around. So the blocker is on the front side of the hand. It's like a big waffle pad. Like it's just like, and then the stick, they hold the stick in the air with the other hand. And they really have stopped trying to use the stick when the ball's on the ground. They use their feet to just kick it the hell out of there. Okay. And they have padding on their feet to with which to do that effectively, because you can't really kick that ball very easily with a pair of cleats on, because you're going to break a toe. Okay. And then just for some, if you look at a bandy ball, like Google it, I should have pulled that up. But bandy ball, it's basically like ice hockey in a football field with field hockey nets. The goalie has like basically it looks like a ice hockey goalie, but they've kind of dropped their stick altogether. They're like, screw it, I got too much to cover. But again, they're not trying to. None of those goalies are trying to make a save with one hand. So if you go to ice hockey goalie and tell them, "Oh, listen, I just want you to play with your right hand today," they'd be like, "You're crazy. I'm not doing that." But that's what a field lacrosse goalie does. Okay. So this particular clip, I thought I'd show you. This is pretty amazing. So this is a handball goalie. All right. And just if you've never watched handball, you should watch this save. So the deal with handball is there's this line that the not the dotted line, but this line here. You have to lead. You have to. You can't step inside that line. You can jump and leap and launch the ball prior to landing inside that line, but you can't shoot past that line. All right, so that's the deal. So this player here has the ball and he's going to jump, and then the goalie. What I love about watching a handball goalie is a goalie. So handballs are actually quite hard. They're like a mini soccer ball that feels like it's been soaked in oil. Like it's heavy and it's thick. And it's actually, if you got schmucked in the face with this thing with no helmet on, you'd probably break your nose. Okay. Um, so, but the handball goalie, like if you see him come out, like, if he's just trying to take up as much space as he can, right? He's trying to be as accessible as possible. And when we did the video, the first video about like which hand should the stick be in, um, a handball goalie would never say like, "Oh, I'm going to take my hand and hang it outside of the goalpost." Just soccer goalie wouldn't say it. Ice hockey goalie wouldn't say it really. Again, because a hockey goalie might to the point where he's not going to sacrifice his stance because of it. But the handball goalie basically goes, "All right, I'm going to get all my limbs in all available corners and try to be as ready as possible to make this save when it comes." The shooter also, I think the reason why I use a handball goalie is the shooting in handball when the ball is actually in a hand is I think it's as complex or potentially a little bit more complex than what we see in lacrosse, right? I mean, sometimes a lacrosse when the ball's on a field lacrosse stick, especially for the boys, there's so much lip and grip and all the mesh now. I think we really need to rethink the pocket rules in lacrosse. I think back in the '90s, it was good when it felt like a defender could actually make a check and the ball would come out on the ground. Where now we're seeing that in the girls, where girls can just run through everybody, and to me, that's not really a team sport at that point, right? So the complexity in handball to me reminds me a lot of field lacrosse because the shooters basically have that ball in their hand, and they can do stuff with it at the last possible minute. They can flick a wrist and change the trajectory. But watch this goalie. This ball is going to go to the goalie's left, and he's going to make the save with his foot. Okay, like right there. So years ago, I was in Germany, and I was in this really cool gym in Germany. They have, Europe has a phenomenal way of using like little tiny spaces for sport. And there's a handball team practicing, and I watched handball goalies actually practice, and I was shocked to see them training saves like this, and the hip flexibility in these goalies is nuts. And I don't necessarily I don't fully understand how you develop this level of reasoning that it's better to make the save with your foot than your hand, but they do, and they do it a lot, right? They do it a lot. And so this is the same as a field lacrosse goalie. For some of you, you watch field lacrosse and you go, how do they make that save? And it's really understanding the language of shooters. It's understanding the language of lacrosse. It's understanding what a shooter can do. And that's exactly what happens here is that this goalie understands that this angle, this release, right? The way this shooter is the arm is coming through, the ball is going to go there, and I'm going to get my foot there. But if you notice, the goalie is actually moving there before the shot even arrives. Okay, and so that's part baiting, right? That's part understanding, like, okay, in this situation, the odds of this shooter going here are really high, because if it wasn't any different, why wouldn't the shooter in this case just like yank the ball down underneath the goalie? It's all happening in a heartbeat. And I do believe that in sport, there's just certain things that we can't really train. There's these intangibles that only come with experience, right? So to like Sherry Hawkins' daughter, the Sherry Hawkins asking like, well, how do we train that? Is it more reps? Yes, it's just more reps. Um, um, and like they've got handball in Sweden, right? Like it's not super popular, but you've got bandy ball, right? Um, but yeah, like when I was in Germany and I saw these goalies training, this is exactly what I saw. These guys like basically walking down a court, and they were taking these massive like steps to their feet. I'm like, holy smokes! Like these men have like no no groin muscles or something. I don't know. He reminds me of David Lee Roth on stage. Yeah, there you go, Alex. Yeah, totally, totally, totally. Um, so, but the reason why I wanted to show this, yeah, there you go, Mike. The goalie understand tells and body language. This just comes with experience. And guys, I would argue there's probably way more handball goalies in this world than there are field lacrosse goalies. Handball is very popular in Europe. Um, and what you're seeing here is this experience and this understanding. But this is where, guys, I tell you know I want to encourage everybody to get your goalie in the cage and put the stick down. Have them, get the tennis balls out, have them get in the cage, in front of the cage naturally. And what they'll do is they're going to start to stand like this, right? And so the reason why I want you to do that is because when they get their stick back in their hands, they're going to be there with a different level of understanding. Okay. Now, Mike, as an adult, I'll just full disclaimer here. I don't recommend using lacrosse balls, but for the adults out there listening, and for those of you guys that play, like Mike, um, Mike, I did this with Holden Cantoni when he was still at Hopkins. I had him shoot on me, and I just had my gloves. Now I have an older set of Warrior gloves that probably the leather in the palm is a little thicker, but not much. But if you want to put on like a baseball like batting glove underneath inside your glove, it's just an extra layer. But I just played like that, and I had him shoot on me, and I let the stick, and it was amazing because I learned, it's a theory I had had for years, and when I finally implement it, it was really cool. And so I'm making saves off my fingers. I did crack a bone in my hand, full disclosure, because I just caught I caught it like perfect. And I had a just a minor like what do you call those, hairline fracture in my hand. So, but that was like full on lacrosse balls with a Division 1, like all second team All American, that sort of thing. So that's pretty extreme. But the point is, guys, is that I believe that the lacrosse goalie of the future is going to fully understand the just more of the, I guess I want to call it like trajectory, like reach, understanding of what it means to be able to use your body in front of the ball. Because I believe 100% that the lacrosse goalie of the future, to change their save percentage, the save percentage that we see now, like when I watched that UVM Duke game, it made me cringe. It really makes me cringe because I'm just like, this does not make sense. This is going backwards. And I can guarantee you that these guys have all spent, thousands of dollars going to camps or clinics or whatever. And I'm like, well, what the hell's being taught? Right? What's being taught? Because it just doesn't make sense to me. Because when you start to look at other goalies and how they play, then then you start to go like, "Oh, wait a second, I get it." So, because I want your goalie to play more organically. I want your goalie to play more naturally, like and I call it my TV rule. Like if you put your kid in front of the best TV in your house, and you said, "All right, listen, I'm going to throw stuff at you. I'm going to try to break the TV, and if not, you have to spend like all your allowance on the next TV set." Your goalie is not going to get in front of the TV set and stand like this. right? Or like this, right? Or like this. They're not. They're going to be like, I'm going to try to take up as much space as possible, right? And then they'll be like, is that a knife you got thrown at me? Like, what? That's how it's going to work. Okay. So, because I want your goalie to experience that, then they're going to get their stick back in their hand and they're going to go, like, this feels stupid. And you're going to go, yeah. All right. So, that's it for that one. Like I said, I could throw you. I could show you a freaking a ton of handball. Just go Google like handball highlights. Go to YouTube. Just search for handball highlights, and you will see some amazing stuff. And you will see saves like that, and it'll be awesome. And what's interesting too about handball is they restart right from the goalie, right? So that's applicable to lacrosse, kind of with the Olympic rules and stuff like that. But the idea is that you're going to see some pretty cool transition. Couple questions here, and box lacrosse did help with some of that for us. I just hope that he is allowed to keep that. Yeah, like I think, and I think, how old is your guy now? 11, 12? Can't remember how old your son. But every goalie that I've ever coached, they get to a point where they run when they start. So, well, actually, every athlete, period. Okay, every athlete run. So 11. Okay, every athlete runs into this situation where they go from being taught, right, and along the way, so instantly at 11, especially, they have mentors, good, bad, or ugly, but they're mentors, right? They're people they look up to, literally and figuratively. Like um, but there comes a point where your athlete should they're starting to internalize what it is they're learning. Like that's the true test of a coach, in my opinion, right? Is that and I got asked to sponsor a goalie a couple weeks ago. I should write about that soon. I think it's the most absurd thing ever. I literally laughed at this kid's face, like totally laughed in this kid's face. But the idea is that a coach is there to impart wisdom in your athlete, and they're going to go then try it. Right now, along the way, at first, when they're first learning, it's going to be like, "Look, do this," and the goalies will be like, "Okay, thank us, I'll do that," and they get better, and they have some success. But then over time, your goalie is going to start to, and they should be trying other stuff, right? They should be trying other techniques, right? It's like a cook in a kitchen. They might go to French culinary school, but then they're going to go try other things. Actually, a fantastic read for everybody, every parent, is to read the book Range by David Epstein. Okay. Because in that book, there is a quote about classical musicians versus jazz musicians. And this blew me away. The whole chapter on classical musicians versus jazz musicians. And it came down to this: jazz musicians can improvise, classical musicians can't improvise. Why? Because classical musicians are only taught to play classically. And if you deviate from that, then you're basically like ostracized and exiled and out you go. But because you're not going to go on stage and play some Beethoven sonata and put your spin on it, right? You'll just be like laughed at, um, especially in Sweden, I'm sure. But in jazz musicians, they can riff and they can do stuff and and they can play with anybody and they can make something out of nothing. And every musician envies that, even the classical ones. And coaching and athletes is a lot like that. And so what really pains me to see in lacrosse is that we have, and this is true, we have a generation of athletes that are very internet based and Instagram based and TikTok based, and they're just seeing stuff and they're not thinking about it. And they're not being forced to experiment either. And so for a coach to kill that, like it's just, that's like a coach saying you've got to play this way classically. And I don't want any of your goalies to be classical goalies. I want your goalies to all be jazz goalies, right? I want them to be able to think about this critically and go, got it. In this stance, like when the ball's over here, then I can do this. When the ball's on that angle, then I might have to morph and do that. Maybe I switch hands. Maybe I, save this with my left foot or my elbow. Like, oh, wait, but maybe I need more equipment to do that. Yeah, okay, cool. All right. So that's the deal. That's the deal. All right. So what you'll run into, Ann, is you'll run into coaches locally who have they'll have their knowledge, right? And I don't want to say limited, that's not the right word. They have their body of knowledge. Like I have my body of knowledge, and other coaches have their body of knowledge. But the idea is your goalie, their job is to learn from those things and try to start and try things and give him a chance. And I know he's 11 and I know his room's a mess, right? And I know he leaves his shoes like right in the doorway when you walk in and you trip on him when you come in with the groceries. And then he doesn't put the groceries away. And that little, like, just inconsiderate little shit is going to try to be a goalie. It's all going to work out. I guarantee it. Okay. But the idea is that they're going to learn and they're going to start to adapt. And you may have to fight that at times. And this happens a lot with the goalies that I coach. We talk about stuff. I do a goalie audit. I say, listen, I want you to get out there and I want you to do this X, Y, and Z. And then I hear back, coach doesn't want me to play that way. And that's when I tell the parents, I'm like, well, you've got to now decide, what the hell are you doing? Are you playing to appease a coach on your junior A rec team or your travel team? Or are you trying to create a Division I lacrosse goalie? And I say that to all my athletes in any sport, by the way. Okay. So that's the deal. So, Mike, you got some good stuff going on tonight, Mike. I stepped in goal at 47 years old last night against my 2028's team and let 6 in out of 25. I told the kids when they asked how, I told them that I've seen them play for years and experience means a lot. Reading body language and prediction is everything and makes you look psychic. It's true. And one of the things there, Mike, that's really good. That's like, I've done that. I haven't done it in a long time. I mean, I got 2 metal hips in me. So, the idea here is that I did play, and one of the things that a lot of high school athletes don't understand is that, and junior high school athletes, is that they're still like putting a formula together, right? They're like, okay, I see this, 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 and I'm just going to do that, 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 and hopefully it works for me too. So there's no art yet. There's no artistry to them. And we make no problem. Um, no problem, Ann. I see you there. Makes sense. Thanks, Brad. Amazing analogy. Jazz goalies. Yeah, dude. Like that's what we're doing. And so to Mike's point. Wait, hold on. I'm going back here first. Sherry, I'll get to you in a second. To Mike's point, it's very easy when you have a little bit of experience to then thwart a bunch of 2028s who don't have that yet, right? And yeah, you look like Yoda, right? Or maybe Obi-Wan. But the idea is that we want to help facilitate some creativity, right? And if your coaches like don't do that, that's why I say like dedicate like 5% of practice, right? And it's funny because you're not like just, it's not willy-nilly like, hey, you guys pick something, do something weird. It's like, okay, hey guys, bring it in for a second. Coach has something he wants to show you, and coach pulls out his phone and pulls up his Instagram or his TikTok, and he goes, "Hey, I saw this cool play last weekend. How many did any of you guys see it?" And I guarantee you they all saw it too. All right, we're gonna practice that right now. All right, see this girl who like scoops up the loose ball and does like 3 somersaults and then catches her mouthpiece out of the air. You see that? And then she puts it in her mouth. It's backwards, but still in her mouth. But then she switches hands and goes between the legs, top shelf. Yeah, we're gonna do that right now. And your kids are going to go like, all right, whatever, dude, coach is a little crazy. But then you know what happens? You try it, and then they now have a way to develop more, what David Epstein calls in his book, range. You got to do that. So that's like, just got to do it. And it's going to help your team. It's going to help your goalie too. Sherry writes, Interesting take. I had a coach critique my daughter because she made the same type of save in 3 different ways and that she needed to pick one and stay that way. Guess she's a Jazz goalie. Yeah, like Sherry, without seeing those clips, like, and without knowing exactly what's going on, my answer to that would be there's with any ball shot from anywhere on the field. And somebody told me the other day this is like a lot of trigonometry, right? But the idea is like for any ball shot from any place on the field, there is one most efficient way to make that save. Okay, so let's use an example off stick hip, one that drives me crazy because most goalies are taught and have been and most coaches have been taught that we're going to basically our stick head is here and we're going to try to get our stick head there. And so what they do is they take a perfectly good piece of equipment like their elbow, their glove, their bottom hand glove out of the way to try to get the stick head there. Whereas what I teach is like we're going to move that elbow and that bottom hand into that space first. Oh, but Coach Edwards, I might get hit on my elbow and I don't have any padding on there. I'll be like, okay, dumbass, say that again. And they go, oh, but Coach Edwards, I don't have any padding there. So what you're telling me is like you wouldn't put your left elbow in front of the ball to make a save? I guess not. I'd be looking for another goalie. Okay. So anyway, so Sherry, to your point, if there's always one most efficient way to make that save in that moment. Okay, so I don't necessarily know what your coach is speaking to, but that's what you want to get your goalie to think about because that's how an ice hockey goalie treats it. That's how a field hockey goalie treats it. This handball goalie, I don't know what to talk about this handball goalie because in his head, it was easier for him to do a split like David Lee Roth, like Alex said, and get his foot above his left hand than his left hand. So I don't know quite how that works, but the idea is that there's an efficient way to make every save. Okay, but so I just want people to understand. I'm not when I talk about like jazz goalie, I'm not condoning sloppy, but I'm condoning like a classical musician just learns how to play classically. It's just like a hockey goalie that only ever learns how to be a hockey goalie and never looks at a handball goalie or never looks at a field hockey goalie or never looks at a field lacrosse goalie. But for a field lacrosse goalie, it's the same thing. And that's what I think we're stuck in. We're seeing like this bastardization of the position because camps and clinics and coaches and Instagram accounts are showing like, okay, this is the way you're supposed to do it. And it makes no sense. And then the goalie gets out in the field and they suck. And we're like, oh, yay, girls, it was a fabulous day today. Our goalie made 20% of the saves. Yes, good job. No. No. Alex writes, I had the same discussion about one shooter on my son's team after he saved all but one shot from him. My son realized how predictable the shooter was after 4 years of practicing against him. It was cool. Yes. Love it. Um, I've got a goalie dad who's got a daughter, and she will remain nameless because I don't want and because this is going to sound horrible, but she knows, and this is going to sound horrible, guys. So I warn you, she knows that every fat girl that gets an 8-meter shot on her is going to do X, Y, and Z and shoot it over her head, and it happens every time. And the goalie knows what she's going to do to make that happen. And you know what? That's like professional, like what a real athlete does. They start to go and critique and go, you know what? Like I know in this situation this is going to happen. Why? Because we practiced it, or I saw it happen in a game, or my coach had me do something fun with, like whatever, right? But that's the deal. So I want to encourage all of you, to and for Ann, when for your goalie that's 11, they're still learning. Like they're still learning. Like the next 3 years or so, it's still going to be very formulaic. Just do this, and it'll frustrate you as a parent. Um, read quiet by Susan Cain. Okay, read the book Quiet by Susan Cain to help understand your kid. It's just fantastic. Okay, um, so it's still formulaic for a while for him. Okay, but I would encourage him to sample like maybe playing goalie in a different sport. That's also cool. Mike writes, the more I participate in these chats, the more I think that all goalies should participate in WLax and how they should pad up to make similar saves in fields. Yeah, Mike, I think, I agree. Like, box lacrosse, just because of the closeness and the distance and the need to use your body, yeah, like that's what I'm all about. Is like I just believe that the lacrosse goalie, the field lacrosse goalie of the future, is going to use their body as a tool. I have a quote that I need to put up on Instagram, that says your stick is not a protective tool. It's a device to make another save. Because I think one thing that's happening is goalies that are now standing like with that vertical stick with their elbows in front of them, it's like they're just trying to protect themselves because they don't want to get hit. But man, if you ever have experienced like an ice hockey chest protector or a box lacrosse chest protector, like you learn to go like you take it in the tits and you go, yeah, I did it. Right. So, so yeah. And that's interesting too, because then what ends up happening is your arms are not like trying to get in front of you to protect something. You're actually like, I just made this save and my hands are still out here. That's cool. Right. That's cool. Um, since you're talking about books, what's the winning book I see behind you? Sherry, so glad. What, this one? I'm so glad you asked. This is mine. I wrote this. So this is called An Athlete's Guide to Winning in Sports and Life. It's on Amazon. It hit number 2 in sports psychology when we launched. It's all my I wrote this kind of as an Olympian with my work at athletespecific.com, and I'm rebranding a program that I do over there called the Athlete OS, so the Athlete Operating System. But yeah, this is my book, and this is something that you can read with your kids. And I wrote it in such a way that it has like this obscenely long like table of contents, so you can pick a category, a topic, and read it. Um, um, yeah, so I'm a little biased, but you should read this one too. Okay. Um, but yeah, thanks for asking. So it's on Amazon. It's also on Kindle, and I think it might be on special on Kindle now too. I don't have an audiobook of it though yet. Um, Audiobooks are a ton of work. So, but yeah, check it out. Get one for your kids. All right. So yeah. So listen, guys. Great. I hope that helps. Great talk tonight. We talked about a lot. I went way longer than I was planning to, but that's okay. I think next week I'm gonna start back up the Facebook Live that I do for my um, raising high performing athletes group, which I shut down last year, just kind of COVID and everything. But I hope that we'll hopefully get that back on board. So no problem, guys. Really appreciate that. No problem, Sherry. Good luck to your goalie. Um, Mike Parash, I do it now. It just hurts a lot. I guess I like punishment. Yeah, there's a point where lacrosse goalies, like I remember I got to this point in high school where I was like, I couldn't get hit hard enough with the ball. Or like that was a legitimate thought going through my head, was you couldn't hurt me. But that is not something, in my opinion, that is coachable, and is not something, in my opinion, that should be taught. Right? Because I don't believe that I don't believe you can coach crazy. I don't believe you can coach like suck it up. I don't believe you can coach um, whatever. You just can't. And so when people say that, like, there was a comment in the group last week, like someone said, um, there was a goalie who was having trouble getting in front of the ball. Um, and somebody said, just tell the goalie that making a save and getting bruised and saving a ball for the team or saving a ball for the team is more important than getting bruised, or more valuable. I'm like, that's your value, dude. You can't teach that to an 11-year-old kid, a 14-year-old kid, even an 18-year-old kid. Yeah, as Mike just wrote, dude bruises at 47 years old, bruises last 2.5 weeks. Well, I don't. That's one of the reasons why I don't allow bruise photos in our group, because I think there's nothing cool about celebrating bruising. That's not cool at all. Because if you think about it, like if your goalie walks off the field and comes home and has a massive bruise on the inside of her leg, what's the difference between that bruise that she got with a lacrosse ball and the coach going up to her with a rubber mallet and going whack, right? It's unnecessary. We don't need it. It's not helping the goalie, and it's not reminding the goalie of good things. It's just, you know, and so, yeah, I get it. We talk about our goalies and we think how tough they are and how but it's not toughness, it's courageousness, right? And courage only lasts so long, right? So that's why I don't really talk about that stuff. Uh, yeah, I agree. My son doesn't buy it now. It doesn't happen to him, but the pain is real. Hey, if your goalie can get to that point and they're like, "Yeah, I love it," that's cool, but that's only as long as they are. Um, I always say it's short lived. I had this discussion last year. I totally offended some dad who said his daughter didn't want to wear shin guards, and I was like, "Well, then she doesn't want to be world class." And he was like, "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" I'm like, "Well, like you give me 30 minutes with your daughter, with a bucket of lacrosse balls, and we're gonna work on off stick low shots that she has to save with her left shin and her left knee. I'm like, we're gonna get like 2 of those shots done, and then she's gonna limp out of the cage." Right. So that's what's really. So the question is, like, does your goalie want to be world class? Does your coaches want to create a world class goalie? Well, being world class is thousands of repetitions, and that's where I see, even at the Division 1 level, I see goalies who are not making saves because they haven't spent thousands of repetitions making that save. So the UVM goalie misses a save to their off stick low that he needed to save with his left foot, and he couldn't do it. And I'm like, you know what? A soccer player in a World Cup with money on the line would be able to, if that was a soccer ball, he would have made that stop. Okay. Um, so that's really important. So, all right, guys, listen, have a great night. Mike, Ann, Sherry, Alex, Jonathan Redfern, Brad, Brad. We won't show that video to your coach. All right. Everybody else who's on tonight, really appreciate it. Thanks so much. And have a great week. See you next week. Cheers. Bye.